Hello and welcome to another devotional. I've been out of the office the last couple of days, and so I haven't been able to put together a devotional. But I'm back in the office, and so we're gonna do one now. It's a beautiful day outside. I hope your world is going good for you right now. Anyways, we're here in Proverbs chapter 8, verse 28 today, and so we're going to read that in just a second. But I just want to remind anybody who's been following along, or in case you haven't, the book of Proverbs is a book of wisdom, and it's the Bible's primary book of wisdom, in which God tries to teach us through these proverbs and statements how to understand, how to be wise, and all that goes with that. And so that's what we've been looking at. And in the eighth chapter, there's this section where wisdom is speaking to us, as it were, and is telling us how important it is to be in this relationship, so to speak, with her, to have wisdom in our life, but to be in this relationship with wisdom, who presents herself as a woman here speaking to us. So in verse 28, she's been talking about how God, when He made everything, how He did it through wisdom. It was with wisdom that He did it, and how He put wisdom into all of creation. And so it's been really interesting. So here in verse 28 says, when God, when He made firm the skies above, when the springs of the deep became fixed. And then she goes on. Now we're doing one verse at a time, so this is half a sentence, but I'll read verse 29 just to say, when He set for the sea its boundaries so that the water could not transgress its command, when He marked out the foundations of the earth. And then on it goes. But she's listing these things like, when He did this, I was there. I was the one He used to do this. He did it with wisdom, right? So our verse today, when He made firm the skies above, when he established the skies, and the springs of the deep, when He established the deep, right? And so it's a way of sort of saying, when you look up, you see the limits of the skies, and when you look down, you see the limits of the depths. God was using wisdom. Now, the other statements that we've been working through in previous videos, you can take a look at them. It's just this poem, right? And so it's this poetic way of saying, there's order, wisdom. There's an orderliness and a beauty and a moral goodness in all these things, in the foundations of the earth itself, the created method He used, the mysteries of creation, and the lofty things of life, and the common things of life, and the secret, mysterious things of life. And then here He's saying, it's almost like this poem is trying to say, there was wisdom in all those parts of life, and also in even the limits of life, the things that surround life, the upward and downward limits of life, not only where you're at, but encasing everything that is God's wisdom. It's in and it kind of, for me, when I hear this part of the poem, I kind of think, it's saying, it's just inescapable. You can't go anywhere and not be under the wisdom of God's, or within the need of wisdom, as God made the world through wisdom. And so it's this inescapable, non-optional thing that it just is. The world is orderly. The world is beautiful. The world is morally bound, right? It is all these things, and not just in the stately things or in the common things, but even just in the limits of things. It is that way. You can't really choose. If wisdom is so widespread, if God's wisdom is so widespread in creation that it's at the foundations and in all the things within, and at the limits of it itself, if that's the case, and you try to opt out of that, well, it's just going to be disaster for you. You can't get away from it. It is inescapable, not really optional. Whether you know it or understand it, it governs your life, the wisdom of God and the order of God. So you can't, with these four things in particular, think about it this way. You can't opt out of reality, right? If you think of it that way, is that you can't just decide to not exist. That's beyond your ability. You can't say, I don't want to exist, so I don't exist. Doesn't matter. You do. You exist. Nothing you can do about that. And all of the truths of reality, it's the same, right? The real truth of this, the real truth of that. There is an absolute and inescapable truth to things in the world. And that's part of the idea that God, when He made the boundaries of what really is and what really isn't, what isn't created, what has not been created, and so on, there's just no escaping that. It is what God did, and the wisdom of His created order, the truth and the reality of it is inescapable. Now you can choose to live as if it didn't exist, but its reality will invade your life. You can plug your ears and close your eyes and say, I don't believe that this is a thing. This weather I'm having today. But then when you walk out into the rain or walk out into the sun, the reality of it hits you, right? It is there. He made the skies. It's a thing. He made the depths. It's a thing. And you gotta learn to live within that reality rather than trying to force of will to make it not exist. And so that's a real important kind of concept. And you'd be surprised how many people live as though reality was simply a matter of their perception or a matter of their will when it's not. It's objectively true, right? So in the same way, there's the order that God created, the boundaries of existence, the boundaries of the universe, boundaries of your life, the orderliness of that, the fact that there is consequence to things, that you can have you can learn the idea of, if I do this, this will happen. And you can learn that and grow in wisdom because God made a world where doing this does result in this. And I can learn that. So it becomes predictable and I can live within that. That's the order, the beauty of the order of God, and the fact that there is consequence for things. Once again, a fool decides, no, 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 no. The consequence is just a matter of my will. If I really want it, it'll happen. Well, no, it won't. It's not that. It doesn't work that way. You're not the creator. You're not the one God created the universe with. He created the universe with wisdom. And you have to learn wisdom. You can't just decide, no, I'm going to make the created order the way I want by willing it enough. It's not the way it works. Now, your will can affect how you act in the world, which then can affect consequences. But you don't will things into existence, and you can't just defy the consequences of reality. It doesn't work that way. It just simply won't work that way. You can try, it won't work. Um, then there's the beauty of creation, right? The fact that God created, and I believe the beauty of creation in the bounds and limits of creation is actually part of wisdom. Like the fact that there are boundaries to everything, and that those boundaries help us see beauty. If there were no boundaries, it would be chaos and not beautiful. But the boundaries of the structure of things is beautiful. It's very beautiful. And that's how God created the world. I don't know this, but I suspect that might be part of the reason that Proverbs is chosen to use a woman as the example, because women are beautiful. Well, at least to me they are. And so, there's a beauty to this. And so that's the thought. And since Proverbs was probably written more to the male at the time, it's just a way of emphasizing the beauty of wisdom. But then the results of that morality, as I've said repeatedly through Proverbs, there's this emphasis given to the idea that wisdom is a moral thing as well. And that morality is in the bounds of creation as well. God has decided what is good and what is evil based on his character, not based on arbitrary measures, based on his character, his goodness. And then his created order has endured things that have fought against his goodness. But ultimately, he will eradicate evil and he will bring about pure good for eternity. And so that's an important part of wisdom as well. So this is the thing, and we need to know that these are things that don't care whether you believe them or live within them. They are things. It is a real world. It is an orderly world. It is a beautiful world. There is morality in the world, and God defines all the limits of those things. And anyone who tries to live as if those things were unlimited or not in God's control, they fall into darkness and frustration and perversion and evil. You fall into dystopia because you're out of sync with reality. And so part of the whole journey of coming to know God's wisdom is because by doing it, then we find out how to live within the bounds of the sky and the deeps. We learn how to live within the bounds of reality, where God wants us to be in a healthy, good way, and it makes our lives better as a result. Anyway, something to think about for you today. That's verse 28. Next time, we'll move to verse 29. God bless you, and we'll see you then.